1776, this great nation accepted that armed conflict was the only way to preserve our rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If our founding fathers could only see us now. From Antietam to Amiens, Okinawa to Anchorage, we have fought. And now, the Red Menace is at our doorstep. Democracy itself is under threat of annihilation. That is why today, July 4th, 2076, 300 years after our great nation began, we gather together to honor the completion of Vault 76. This sprawling underground shelter may have been engineered by Vault Tech, but it was built by you, the good people of America, so that if the bombs do come, if the end does come, our way of life will endure. But not everyone will be saved. Those chosen to enter this vault must be our best and our brightest. For when the fighting is stopped and the fallout has settled, you must rebuild. Not just walls, not just buildings, but hearts and minds, and ultimately, America itself. So as we stand here today, we pray that the world will know peace. But if that is not our destiny, if war must come, we stand together knowing that here in Vault 76, our future begins.
Hello, and welcome to the first episode of my Fallout 76 playthrough. This is a little bit of a different animal, so the playthrough will probably be a little bit different. But yeah, here it is, the much talked about and slightly maligned Fallout 76. We're going to jump right in here, and let's go ahead and grab a few things. Now, I don't want to spend way too much time on this, just because if you've played Fallout 4, you know basically how the sculpting works. And on top of that, they actually pretty much give you the ability to change it at any time. At least they did in the beta. So I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time on it here. Give it a little goatee with some stubble, which feels about right. And then, you know what? I'm going to go with that guy, and then body shape. We'll make him a little bit on the chubbier, huskier side, like me. And then this one's not, obviously, doesn't look anything nearly as devastatingly handsome as I do. But here we go. So we're just going to jump right in. And of course, for the purposes of this, we're going to name him after the gone but not forgotten Slackathor. So I'll go ahead and make him Slackathor, my old friend. And then we'll pull back a little bit. Get that good morning sign in right there. Mostly. And then you can do all these great, and this is a really early idea of the the camera mode, but that'll do for now. Alright, so here we are, we're in our room. We just woke up from a long night of partying. And the vault is ready to be opened and explored. And you got terminal. Today's the day. We love you, but get out. And of course, there's been a lot said about Fallout 76. I think that from having played the beta, my earlier beefs about it, I feel like those will possibly smooth out given time. My more recent problems with Bethesda are the fact that they promised a very specific item. They promised a really nice canvas bag as part of the pre-order, the special edition pre-order, and sent a really cheap nylon bag. And are basically just trying to buy people off with 500 points. Oh, here you go. There are cosmetic purchases that can be made through these things called Atom Points. And we'll come into that later. But first things first, as you can see, this is inside the Vault 76. And of course, all of your wonderful little trophies and things that identify you. And it still very much feels like the Fallout aesthetic from the most recent game, Fallout 4. I don't know why that lunchbox is clipping, but as you can see, clipping. And there's our Pip-Boy. So let's grab our Pip-Boy. I'm not one of those that when I heard there were not going to be NPCs, I didn't go running for the hills. It did concern me, and I'll actually share with you why some of those concerns are valid here in a little bit. But for now, let's see. As you can see, very pretty game. Very pretty game. And you won't notice it right away. It depends on how the server loads. But there can sometimes be one or two people in here with you. And I just can assume that they come out of these separate pods here. You can still go back into yours for the moment, but there's no need to. So follow the Pip-Boy. Vault Boy, excuse me. They were playing beer pong. And this is going to steer us, as you can see, one heck of a party. And streamers and red solo cups. And when Fallout 76 said no NPCs, it meant no human NPCs. So this is the first NPC you run into, who is, of course, a robot. And along the way, just keep going, and you'll come to your first station. Stay hydrated. So it tells you grab some water and some Rad-X. This one is obviously very heavily grounded in survival. You have to manage your eating and your drinking. I'll go into more of that later. Health and medication. So it gives you a free stim pack and a free Rad-Away. And now we have our backpack with some rudimentary building supplies. And now for the first time you can go into your... I've gone into my third person, but we're going to stay in first person for this. Well, congratulations. You can take a party hat. You can do emotes. So if I want to go, for no one to see, then I can do that. And it gave me a hat Oops, I accidentally activated. There's my Pip-Boy. And we can go into items, into apparel, put on this party hat. And as you can see, check me out, styling that party hat. All right. And come in here. This is the Overseer's office. And the Overseer has left a series of things on her terminal. You can read through them. That'll give you a little bit of backstory. Talks about the fact that once they get everybody out of the vault, it's going to be shut down. That unlike a lot of the other vaults in previous games, there's not a whole lot of... There's not a big vicious experiment going on. The goal is just to get these people, keep them safe, and release them on a specific day. And then once the people are out, get them out.
Overseer's log, or should I say, direct communication.
And so now we have the Overseer, and she's talking about her mission to leave the vault.
I need your help. I've been given a task, and I've decided to break protocol and tell you what it is. Because if there's one thing I've learned in these past few years, it's that we need to rely on each other. There were 3 active nuclear silos in Appalachia before the bombs fell.
Great.
It blew up the world before. We can't let it happen again. So we've got to locate and secure all of the silos.
Lovely.
Or die trying. Hopefully the former. But it's been 25 years. I just don't know what we're gonna find out there. Or where to start. My directive was to go to the nearest population center and assess the situation. I'll set up a camp on the way once I get my bearings. Find me there.
All right, and so automatically we take the tape. And you're going to notice almost immediately that that right there is potentially one of the actual problems of Fallout 76. I love holotapes. I think they're a wonderful way of breaking up the monotony of storytelling. So where traditional RPGs will have you walk up to a quest giver, talk to a quest giver, and then you go to the next quest giver, and so on and so forth. Having the holotapes allows you to sort of break that monotony up, listen to it, and go from there. I'll come back to that thought in just a second. Here is the camp unit, which is what allows you to build your own private facility. So we'll go ahead and fold that up and take it. And then we'll head over. There's nothing really there. A bunch of extra camp units there. Can't take them, but there they are. And let's head this way. There's another terminal. And while I'm looking into the terminal, I'll finish my thought. So, as I was saying, it's a great way of breaking down storytelling and adding ways to tell it differently. Just like finding a book or a note or, like things like that happen in Morrowind all the time. Or not Morrowind, but the Elder Scrolls. You find a piece of paper and you read it and suddenly you're on a quest. Or you talk, it's not just talking to a creature NPC. So with them wanting all human NPCs to be other players you interact with, now you have all of these terminals that you have to read through, which is fine. Some of the best stuff in Fallout comes from the little hidden backstories in these terminals. And the magazines and those kind of things. But now the holotapes have become so crucially important. I know when I was playing through the beta, one of the things that kind of irritated me was the fact that I'd pick up a holotape and I'd have to sit there for several minutes listening to this holotape, whereas when I was talking to somebody, be it a robot or a human being, it feels more interactive and therefore doesn't feel as much of, I guess, a chore would be it. So again, we'll talk more on that in a minute, but let's do this. This is our first opportunity to level. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab perk cards, and I'm going to do a little bit of a quick breakdown. I'm sure those of you that have done some research into Fallout 76 know a little bit about the level system. Of course, Special is back, and it's all the same acronyms. Strength, perception, endurance, all that stuff is back. Only difference is, as you can see, there's a number under each one of the letters up top. And while each of these still does the benefits that it gives, for instance, if you're strong, you can carry a lot of things. If you have endurance, you have greater health. So all these things are still basically the same, but that number comes into play in terms of those perk cards. So for instance, let's say strength. Since I have 1 point in strength, I can use the 1 point gladiator card, which will in turn give my one-handed melee weapon 10 additional % damage. You can also go in with each individual one and do all of those. So right away it gives you the first perk card right away. For the purposes of this, because I know that carrying things and health, those two things are going to probably be two of the most important aspects, because it does, again, have a survival element. I want to look, let's see, Gladiator. I'm going to look at the card sort of to steer me on my first point. Stim packs restore 15% more lost health. That's probably pretty valuable at some point. But for the moment, I'm going to take Lead Belly and get some extra additional endurance, which will help my overall health. And that leads us to the next section. So when you get your cards, you can get multiple cards and you can stack them, which will increase. So when you get this, if you get a second Lead Belly card, it can become a 2-point card, and you take 60% less from eating or drinking. And then lastly, you take no radiation from eating or drinking, which is great. But, of course, the trade-off, you have to have the corresponding endurance. So you would have to have a 3 in E. It's a really intuitive leveling system once you get used to it. And actually one of the biggest elements of the Fallout 76 beta that I played that I had no problem with. No complaints, because the other beautiful thing is the more cards you get, you can swap things out on the fly depending on the points. And so let's say you're in a group and you're playing as sort of a quasi-healer. You can go into your dump points into your charisma so you can share things. You can tweak to be more of a tank. There's all sorts of functionality and customization that comes with this. And I haven't even scratched the surface. That's just having played about 17 levels in the beta. All right, so here we go. Let's go in here. And I want to check something. So as you can see, I added the point to endurance. So if I were to come across a second endurance card, which I believe you can only get them in leveling, at least that's it. You can't buy them. The only microtransactions, like I said, are those atoms, and we'll come back to that. All right. So let's let's head on here, and I think that this is pretty much it. It's been a little while since I played the beta, and the game's been out for about a week. I wanted to let some of the early issues die down. Wanted to see how the early reception would take. And if any of you have watched my one level at a time, you know these bracket tricks. And the same thing goes here. And I got one try left, so I might run out here. Uh-oh. I don't think I'm going to get any more second chances. Oh, there's one. Yay! Alright. So... Alright. And of course, you can always do what you would in previous Fallouts if you're really that interested. You can just back out. I don't think there's a serious penalty. It's one of those where you can... Oh, okay, so I have gotten locked out. Oh, drat. I think that terminal just talks about the janitor is upset of all the not being able to stay or something. If I remember, it's not crucial to the mission. You got to... Of course, the iconic image of the vault door opening.
They grow up so fast.
Of the robot saying all the goodbyes. And we come to our first load screen, which actually brings me to one of the cool features that they do have. I mentioned photo mode extraordinarily briefly. If you're one that likes to take photos in-game, the photo mode here can let you snap a picture in front of a big monster or in front of an iconic building or something like that. And when your load screens come up, you'll start to see your own pictures filter in. All right, Reclamation Day. We got our first official achievement. I'm probably going to get a bunch of them from the standpoint of I have played this game before. And of course, you have to eat to prevent starvation. You see the fork and knife icon there, and you have to drink to avoid thirst. Hunger meters and thirst meters drain, and they will start to incur negative effects. All right, and so we get our first gun. And we run into our first body. Get our first chems. And the first mission really is, of course, we need to go find the Overseer. Which... Oh, and as I mentioned earlier, once you're out, that's it. There's no going back in. But let's head this way. The dot on the map there indicates the Overseer's journey.
The Overseer said she'd set up her camp down the road to the south.
All right. And so we can start our run here. I'm not going to be playing too much longer on this episode, just because I do want to keep these relatively short chunks. I need you to make the monthly scouting run to Vault 76. Those doors have to open sometime. Don't take risks. Observe for a few days and come back, Maria. And that's somebody from a group called the Responders. Beta disclosure, that group looks to be pretty involved. We can go in here. There's one of our first enemies. And because it's early game and I know how valuable ammo can be in any game like Fallout, go melee here. And they kind of introduce you to it in Fallout 4, but it is definitely an aspect here. Collecting and looting are very, very important. As you can see, you have your regular attack and your power attack. And of course, you look if the meter on the right, the action points, are affected by that. And we have a structure here. This might be a man-made or player-made. Let's just take a quick look. Got our first cooking station. Picking up a few things here. I want to be careful not to overburden yourself because it will add up really fast. And one of the early complaints is there is a system, and we'll show it in a little bit, that gives you the ability, to store your junk, but it's very limited in space. And that's actually one of the first things that they're going to be updating on a pretty major patch coming up. In some places you can find instruments. So jam out a little banjo. And if you are with a group, I could come and play the banjo, and somebody else could walk up. Play the mouth harp. Of course, we don't know where that's been, so I probably shouldn't have picked that up. But that's one of the first structures we've run into. Oh, that's good. Tato. So let's grab that super fast. The one thing to keep in mind is that, and I'll show you guys right away, as I mentioned, there's a survival element here. And one of the key pieces of survival is that food has a time limit. As you can see, the condition bar. It rots, and eventually it'll spoil, and it's completely useless to you. Coincidentally, similar to the mild survival elements that were implemented into Red Dead 2, for those of you who've been watching that. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's keep going down this pathway here. If I run into anything, it's Machete City. Now, I know there's going to be some people that are like, well, with the survival element, how difficult is it going to be? Also, I'm seeing my first little bit of clipping in terms of draw distance. It is pretty up close, but their draw distances can kind of pop in and those kind of things. That's very disappointing for a game of this quality. It is absolutely stunningly beautiful, though, when you compare it to previous games in the series where there's always been something a little drab or dreary. And you got some dirty water. You can collect that. You will get rads. to take some rad damage there and collect those 10 bottles, though, because drinking does become very important down the road. Don't want to swim in it very long. A little bit of loot scrap. Oh, what was that? It's a little tabby cat. It's registering as an enemy, but I'm not going to attack it. The variety here in terms of environment is stunning, as I was saying earlier. The other thing with when I was also kind of got cut off by what I was saying about that pop-in, the survival elements are actually relatively easy to handle. As you can see here, wood is plentiful. If we look off to the side here, this is actually a farm. By the way, you can see some of the petrified corpses left over by the bombs. And even in and around here, there are places like lumber camps. There are... Uh-oh. Oh, crap. Alright. These are the Scorched, by the way. They are a different variation of ghouls. As you can see, they shoot. They use weapons. And you will hear some of them talk. That is honestly where I have a little bit of a problem when you, as Bethesda, decide to say, well, we're not going to have any human NPCs, but you're going to create these Scorched, who are perfectly cool looking enemies. I mean, look at that. That's awesome. They look like they got caught in all of the aftermath. I mean, that's fantastic. But they talk, and you haven't heard one yet, but they do talk. They do throw things. They do shoot. They have all the same elements of a raider NPC. So why not just have raiders and just, it's okay. You can still have Scorched, but that's a nitpick, I suppose. Again, scavenging a little bit, even though I probably should focus on getting rid of these enemies. This one, uh-oh, I have a concussion. And I'm dead. Alright, well, I should have been watching my health a little better. Now, if there were anybody around, I could get some help, but there's not, so we're going to give up. But what this does is gives me the opportunity very early game to show you the ramifications of death. So maybe I did that on purpose. Are they buying it? I think they're buying it. Okay. So you do get to respawn. Since we had discovered that homestead, we can respawn extremely close to where we were. And when you die, if you have armor or weapons, you still keep said weapons, said armor. It's not going to take your really good stuff. That being said, when we get over here, you will see a small bag laying on the ground right around here somewhere. At least I hope so. There should be a bag right... Oh, there it is. Okay. And that is all the contents of my person when those guys killed me. So, that is death. Now, the penalty there obviously being, or the drawback being, if you're in a world with 25 people and you get killed and you have semi-decent junk or a lot of stuff, they could technically take all of your junk, and then you're left without that stuff, and you'll have to go back. Alright, so now I've scrapped all of that. This one has a little bit of a better overall condition. So I'm actually going to scrap that gun. And I learned how to do the standard stock. So there is an advantage to scrapping sometimes the items you have. I'm almost to the camp, and I think that's where I'm going to stop. That'll put us at a little bit over, probably close to 40-45 minutes, which is a little longer than what I've been trying to do with my other episodes. I want to try to make these, like I said before, bite-sized chunks. And so let's do a little bit of running. I got pumpkins here. I think those are still in relatively good condition. The ones over here are not, as you can see. Those have started to go bad. But if we look at our food here, you can see they're all in decent condition. Alright, so let's run. We're going to skip over enemies. And if you look at the meters, by the way, you can see at the underneath, just above my AP meters, for just a second there, my hunger and my thirst both had started to drop. So getting a hold of that early does come into play. Caps are back, as you can see there. There's a lot to unpack, so we're obviously gonna do quite a few episodes. I don't think it's gonna be like the traditional one level at a time. I might stick near that structure, or I might just do the 20-25 minutes. It really just depends on how I feel with it. There's the multiplayer aspect that comes into play as well. This is the camp, so let's go ahead and we'll cover a couple other quick things. And right away, this is a stash box. This is the Overseer's version of it, where you can see she had some things. There's atom points right there. That's the stuff that I'll talk about at the beginning of the next episode. Let's go ahead and listen to this next tape.
South of Vault 76. I knew this wasn't going to be the Appalachia I remembered, but mutated animals, haywire bots, no people so far. We have to be ready to rebuild in what I can confirm is hostile territory. Fortunately, Vault Tech was prepared. You see this? The cooking station, the stash box, the workbenches, all built with the camp. You need a home base out there. The construction and assembly mobile platform is designed to give you one. Just add resources, planning, and a little elbow grease. When you move your camp, everything you built is stored, ready to be placed back down in the new area. Use this to establish a foothold whenever you're in unfamiliar territory. I've left my camp behind so you can use it. I know I'm breaking my own advice by not taking it with me. But after seeing Appalachia for myself, I need to make sure every resident of 76 has a safe haven they can start from. I'll make do without it. If it's still standing, the town of Flatwoods is further down this road. Find me there. This is the Overseer, signing off.
So as you can see, kind of what I was saying, it's a little bit long, but she's introduced us to the camp. Let's go ahead and dive into this really super fast, and then we'll wrap up. At the camp, this particular camp has a cooking station, which you can then take, and you can go in, toggle your craftable items, and look at that. Because of the wood I picked up and the water I picked up, I can make 5 bottles of boiled water, which is a little tiny bit better than just dirty water that you would pull out of the river. Not much, but somewhat. So you have that. You can also cook, squirrel bits. You can make pumpkin soup. All sorts of extra elements that can come into play there. We'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to hold off on pumpkins for a minute. And, yep, let's go ahead. And the next part here is the weapons bench. It says go ahead and scrap. You can scrap, which I'll go ahead and just scrap the junk. And then you can go in and it's asking you to make a weapon. So we'll just go ahead and craft our first weapon. And we'll do... I already have a machete. I already have a pipe pistol. Let's see. Let's check something here real quick with the pipe pistol I have. The pipe pistol I have, I believe, does 12 damage. So let's come in here and let's go. That bolt action would do 40 and the rifle would do 20, or the revolver would do 27. So let's make the bolt action pistol. As you can see, it'll pull those supplies. And there we go. And of course you can make various weapons. Obviously the early ones aren't going to be that great. And same thing with the armor. You can make outfits. These are incumbent on, you see the little atom symbol. I think I got those from pre-order bonus. And then you can do a chest piece, arms, legs. I'm going to see just how many I can get away with here. And do leather chest, right arm, and that's it. So that's all I'm able to make right now. And then, as you can tell, you can go right in. And now I have a little bit of a different look. I got a little bit of armor. I've got my first weapon. Well, that's the machete I already had. But there you go. And of course you can repair those weapons too. So the machete probably took a little damage from those enemies. Yep, a little bit of there. And you do a little bit of repair. Boom, you're back up and running. And let's go ahead and repair that pipe pistol while we're at it. That's the original one we got. All right, and that is the camp. We'll actually go in with our own camp here. And let's do that super fast so I can do one element of it. One aspect. I'm going to put it over here near... I want to come over here where there's some water. And then you can see the green is the boundaries. Plant that sucker right here. And that'll give us an achievement. And then what I'm going to do, because it is very, very hard to come by, the first thing we're going to do is get in here and plant those tomatoes that we got a minute ago. think it was just the one. Yeah, just the one. And let's see if we can do anything with pumpkins, even though we have them. Okay, so we can't do anything with the pumpkins. So what we'll do is we'll come over here to crafting. And just right up against this tree here, this little nook in the tree, next to it, we'll set up that. Oops, don't want to. And then I'll go ahead, and as you can see, go ahead and make that pumpkin soup. Now all of a sudden, oh wait, I don't have enough water. Well, guess what? I can come right here. Not only do I have access to glowing fungus, but I can collect. And there you go. And you have your first camp and our first bit of supply for food and water, which will get us started, and we'll go from there. Now, anywhere on the map, you can travel to the camp for free, so that's obviously very helpful. And as you can see, wood and all those other things are very plentiful. So until next time, this has been Fallout 76, just some first impressions for you guys. I hope you've enjoyed it, and please come back next time for another episode. Have a nice day.